Cleveland Browns have won 4 out of their last
Of
5
all of
games.
my bobbleheads are officially throwback. This one's for you.
This is a big one for me.
Tis the season. It is Christmas Eve, the Wednesday before draft night for Browns fans. And man, we are excited to talk some Browns draft. It's that day of the year that we all look forward to. And the Browns are leading up to this draft in first place in off-season transactions and uniform adjustments. The Browns are ready to go into the preseason, become the preseason champs once again, and then the regular season afterwards. But anyways, we are going to talk some draft here, and we'll get into who the Browns are going to select. But one of the hot topics that people have been talking about here is the trade opportunities. I don't think OBJ is going to be a trade opportunity. Paul D. Podesta has shot that one down. But there are some other trade options out there. Let's go to Eric first here. What are you hearing is some of the trade options for the Browns?
Well, I've been reading, I've been hearing, however you want to phrase it, but obviously the hot name is Trent Williams, left tackle from the Washington franchise. Obviously there's rumors of what the Browns would be willing, or any team for that matter, be willing to give up for him. I'm still sticking by with what I said several weeks ago, third round comp. Take it or leave it. If they want a first or second, may he go to the highest bidder, I guess. And, I wish him the very best. I think some of these left tackles that potentially in the first round, if the Browns take, I think they would do a fine job. I just don't know if Trent Williams giving up a first round would, especially if he's only got maybe 2 or 3 years of high output, would be worth giving that much value up for, or even multiple picks. I mean, who knows exactly what Washington wants. That's kind of all the only ones, I guess, as far as players are concerned. I mean, there's options. You've heard about Andrew Berry potentially trading down. I've heard twice trading down, which gave me the heebie-jeebies, reminded me of 2009. I mean, we did land Alex Mack, which was a great, tremendous player, but that's about it.
Better picks, man.
That was about it. All the extra picks were nothing. So it's you got to be cautious with that, and if you hit on them, obviously that's the key point. And this is a new front office that potentially they could make the right decisions this time. But my main focus is what we're gonna do with Trent Williams. I think if we don't hear anything, I would say by 9:00 at night, a couple minutes, half hour or so before they pick, I wouldn't expect anything. But I would expect both sides would get this agreement done prior to the draft beginning, but we'll see. If they stick to their guns and just take 7 guys who they're slated to pick, I won't be upset. So just get the right 7 guys and we're ready to go, ready to start the season.
All right, Drew. Eric is saying third round comp for Trent Williams. Would you take a second round pick, trade that over for Trent Williams, and maybe go somewhere else with your first pick in the draft at the 10 slot?
That's a good question, right? The fact that I'm hesitating this much means it's a really good hypothetical. I would probably not make that trade. I think I can get a really good tackle at 10 and a really good player in the second round. And I'd rather have that with the cost control, with the longevity, than have to make the trade for Trent Williams. And then, you still have 10 overall, so you'll still get a really good player, but you lose the flexibility with it. And maybe they could trade back, maybe they could do a lot with it, but I personally feel with him not playing, really in almost 2 years, that a number 41 overall is too steep of a price to pay for that. Now, with that said, I do have two other sort of trade scenarios that I've been kicking around. I know that was one of the questions you had asked to Eric. So there are two teams that I'm hearing that are very anxious, very much targeting a trade up in the draft. I'm hearing the Falcons at pick 16. This is an interesting name. There's a couple ways that they could go. I don't know of a particular position group that they would be targeting, but I could see them, making a big move if, somebody from their board was starting to slip that they think could sort of put them over the top. They also have pick 47, so you could go from, I think, 10 down to 16, and you might be able to pick up pick 47. You'd probably have to shuffle some things around there. You might have to send the Houston third rounder back, but you could definitely pick up some really good picks that way. You could go 16, 41, 47, have three of the top 50. That's something that I'm really interested in should they decide to move down. The other team that I know is looking to trade up is my local team right now, although not for much longer. That's the Philadelphia Eagles, and they are looking for one of the top wide receivers. Carson Wentz had essentially no help when Deshaun Jackson got hurt last year. The guy I think they like is CeeDee Lamb. I think he's number one. Jerry Jeudy is in that mix, 1A, 1B. That's who they would be targeting for a trade up. Now, they don't pick till pick 21. There was a trade in last year's draft very similar to this with the Steelers and Broncos that involved going from 10 to 20, and that was a first, second, and third. So using that as compensation, the Browns would pick up pick 21, pick 53, and then I don't know where the Eagles pick in the third round, but the Eagles would be giving up those three picks to go up to 10 overall. Actually, the pick last year involved a third-round pick in the next year. I wouldn't want that. I would want the pick this year. So, if you're looking to go all the way up 11 spots over that far in the draft, I would want first, second, third. And I think it's a fair ask. They're not giving up any assets for next year. They're not mortgaging the future. So, I think that's a fair trade, a fair compensation, and I think they could still get one of the offensive tackles. The guy that I like is Ezra Cleveland in that type of a range. I think he would still be there, and I think he could do a pretty good job. He's not as good as your Andrew Thomas, your Tristan Wirfs. He doesn't have the upside of a Mekhi Becton, but I think he could be a really solid tackle. He could answer that that call, play right away, and I think he's a really good schematic fit for the wide zone. So. That's an interesting name, and one that if they trade down, which I know they are wont to do, it seems like any sort of heavy analytics team is always, the numbers clearly say if you have more picks, you have more chances for success. That's not rocket science math. And I think if their top two targets are gone, which are Tristan Wirfs and Andrew Thomas, again, this is what I believe. This is based on the people I follow, the research I do in the draft. I think those are their top two targets. And if they are gone, I would look at one of those potential scenarios unfolding. There's obviously more teams that might be looking for it. Anybody's looking for a good deal, but those are the ones that I'm eyeballing come the draft. We'll see if they move up ahead of the Browns or if there's still some good wide receivers left. If none of them have gone by pick 10, that could be a nice spot for somebody to trade into for one of those top guys.
Yeah, there's two competing priorities there, and Paul D. Podesta spoke with the media recently. He talked about those two priorities. I think the one, yes, analytics say the more picks you have, the more chances you have to hit on those players. So trading down would be advantageous for the Browns. There's also the comments that D. Podesta has mentioned is that OBJ is not going to be traded. The Browns are trying to build right now. They aren't trying to tear down. Why would they trade OBJ away? So, Eric, with those two competing priorities, what do you want to see? We've had some tough drafts where we do trade down, and that has really come, I think a lot of Browns fans just say, pick the player, pick the right player. But do you want to have that safety net behind you?
I mean, I guess it really depends on how the top 9 picks shake out. Provided it's kind of the guys that I would expect to go, and we have one of the 2 offensive tackles. I'm kind of in agreement with Drew. I'm thinking right now I'm leaning towards Thomas being the guy. So, if he's on the board, that sounds great to take him. And as I mentioned before, if somehow Isaiah Simmons falls to number 10, you take him. If he's on the board at number 10 and they trade down, I will not be a happy person. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. So, yeah, I mean, if somehow, let's say hypothetically, Joe Burrow's the only quarterback taken in the top 9, and all the 4 offensive if I could do the math here, 4 offensive tackles and Simmons are gone, that would lead me more likely to trade than any other scenario that I could think of. I mean, maybe that, but the only thing on that end is that a guy like Jeff Okudah or Derek Brown could potentially fall to number 10, who those are both tremendous players. And as a fan, I would like them on my team, although you could see what the front office is saying, hey, we're pretty decent in both these 2 positions. Maybe somebody would want to come up and I could get a pretty good haul. So that would be my only likely potential trade down that I would be comfortable with. But, I mean, we're kind of prisoners of the moment of how things went many times in the past of trade down for player X, didn't really work out. Player Y, who was drafted in that spot, had a much better career. I don't want to put anybody down for the Browns, but Julio Jones would have been a good addition for the Browns. We did get out of Mark Sanchez, so we didn't have to worry about that, I guess, that 1 year. So, but I think we got good players. We need to add better players. We don't need a lot of good players. We need great players, and I think we can get a great player at number 10 who can and 41 and 97, blah 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 blah. But yeah, just keep it simple, stupid, and pick with the pick you got.
Okay, Eric, I'll go right back to you here because I think you sort of painted a worst case scenario here. Okay, so Burrow goes 1,
right,
and then we have the 4 offensive tackles, so that's 5.
5, yeah,
and then we have Okudah, Brown, Simmons drafted before us as well. Who do the Browns go? Can you do the math here? Is it like an automatic trade down? There might not be that trade down opportunity.
Was it Javon
So
Kinlaw?
Tua, can you say it again? Was Tua one of those
No.
picks?
No, just one quarterback, because that's what we're rooting for. We're rooting for 6 quarterbacks to be drafted before us. But so it's just Burrow. Go ahead, Eric.
I guess Javon Kinlaw. I mean, but is he an edge or is he a DT?
He's a DT. That was number 1 on my
That's
board.
another one where,
Okay.
yeah, it's the same thing where we're not desperate in that position. He would definitely help, but it's not our main weakness on the team. So if somebody would come up for Kinlaw, I guess that'd be a trade situation. I mean, maybe at that point, yeah, maybe somebody come up for one of the receivers, or knowing that there's only been one quarterback taken, maybe that's where maybe the Dolphins trade up from their 18th spot and get the quarterback. I don't know why they would do that, but Raiders have 2 first-round picks that are just behind ours. I mean, there's a lot of different options that could happen. So I guess in that scenario, it would be more likely to trade for a quarterback than an Okudah or Derek Brown.
Gotcha, Drew. What are you thinking in that worst-case scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot to unpack here, right? I wanted to talk trade down, I wanted to talk all this. So, all right, so starting with that sort of a scenario, the guy that I think is and Eric mentioned him, Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle from South Carolina. That would be the guy who I would pick. I think the top talent on the board is C.J. Henderson in that scenario, the cornerback from Florida. I'm of the opinion that you can never have enough good cornerbacks, right? That's the Mike Pettin, philosophy, that it's impossible to have enough guys who can cover because the offense can throw, 4 and 5 wide receivers at you, and you have to cover them, right? So I would be fine with C.J. Henderson, cornerback. I think we would have 3 really strong cornerbacks then. You could do a lot of things with that. I'd also be very much okay with Javon Kinlaw. And the other guy that I like is Kaylavon Chason, defensive end from LSU. I think he is pretty much the sort of top number 2 defensive end or edge rusher once you get past, obviously, Chase Young, right? So that's sort of my philosophy. As far as trade downs go, I am of the opinion that blue chip prospects exist. Blue chip prospects exist, right? So there are a certain amount of guys that I believe are quote unquote can't miss. And sure, these guys miss. Trent Richardson's happen, right? Like these things happen. But I think when you have a shot at one of those guys, you have to take that shot. Go down swinging, right? Don't be scared. Trade back. That's how you get things like Warren Sapp is on the board and you decide that you don't want it. You're going to trade down. That's how you get. Eric mentioned Julio Jones is on the board. You don't want it. You trade down. That's how you get Khalil Mack is on the board. You don't want it. You're scared. You trade down. All these things happen, and that this is just the Browns, right? And I get that, the analytics say more picks are better. I totally get that. And when you're talking about picks outside the top 10 to 15, I think that's generally true. But in this draft, I would prefer to stay where we are. I have a total of about 6, what I believe to be 6 or 7 blue chip prospects. Those are Joe Burrow, Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah, Isaiah Simmons, Tua, Tristan Wirfs, and Andrew Thomas. All right, those are the guys that I think are can't miss. I think Jedrick Wills is a really good player, and I think that he's probably a blue chip if you can play him at right tackle. He's in high school he was a right tackle. In college he was a right tackle. That's where he's going to play in the pros. I think you're getting a great one. It doesn't work for the Browns. So of those 8 guys, let's cross off Joe Burrow. Let's cross off Tua. Let's cross off Wills. You get into some of those pieces like who could be on the board that I would want to take in that scenario. And if those guys, if none of them are available, then I think you get into where it might be in your best interest in that case to trade down. I personally think one of those guys will be there, the ones that I think have a possibility. Jeffrey Okudah, I do not trade down. I draft Jeffrey Okudah. Those are my cornerbacks. Okudah, Ward, Greedy Williams. I'll roll with that right now if he's on the board. Isaiah Simmons, he already Eric already mentioned. Wirfs, Thomas. Those are the guys that I do not pass on. If the planets collide and Chase Young is there, then obviously, right? But after that, I have some real issues with some of these players. I am not a fan of Derek Brown, the defensive tackle from Auburn. I personally see nothing special about his game. I think you're going to get a solid defensive tackle, a run stuffer, a guy that can be on the field, for 3 downs, but I don't see anything special from an interior pass rush perspective. I see very much an above average, high floor, low ceiling defensive tackle, and that is not a spot in the top 10 that I feel comfortable drafting him. So I am hoping that somebody above pick 10 feels differently than me. He has been mocked to go above pick 10. The most popular mock has him going to the Panthers at pick 7 or the Jaguars at pick 9. And I would be very much thrilled if either of those two things happen, because I think if he's on the board and some of those tackles are gone, I'm going to be terrified that they roll with this guy, and that would be a bad day. I'd have a bad day on my favorite day of the year. So that's something that I'm monitoring. Something that I really don't want. Talking about worst case scenario. That's it for me personally. My worst case scenario in this is not a trade down. It's not that both the offensive tackles I like are gone. It's not Mekhi Becton. It's not taking Jedrick Wills and trying to transition him to left tackle. My worst case scenario is Derek Brown, 10th overall.
Okay, Drew, I'll go back to you real quick for one more. So we've only been talking about trading down. What if there is a trade up scenario? Let's say we could be a little bit fuzzy, but let's say it's a second round or for next year. Is there anyone in this draft that you would trade up for that would be an impact player? Those blue chippers that you're mentioning that are going to make an impact on this team. Is there anyone that you would trade up for?
Yeah, it obviously depends on compensation, right? Whenever you're getting into a trade-up type of a situation, it's going to depend on what your compensation is, right? Yeah, I'd give up a seventh-round pick to move up to spot number one, right? But, in a realistic sort of a scenario, I would move up for Isaiah Simmons. I would be okay with that. I'd certainly move up for my number one target would be Tristan Wirfs, and I would be okay with moving up for Andrew Thomas. In terms of potential targets, I think the Panthers at 7, that's your target. The Cardinals at 8 are going to take an offensive tackle. They have a very below average line. They play in a division where they play San Francisco twice a year, where they play Los Angeles, they play the Rams twice a year. You need to have a solid line for Kyler Murray, and they do not. And they've made some trades. They got a wide receiver from the Texans. That was a fleecing. But they are in as bad, if not worse, of a shape along the offensive line. So I think a move from 10 to 7 to get ahead of the Cardinals at 8 is very much on the table. And my target would be Tristan Wirfs. If he's still around, I would go up to get him, again, depending on the compensation involved. If I can do it, if I can go up 3 spots, and maybe I end up trading away the late third-round pick, or if I have to give up the Browns pick in the third round, it is something I consider. I don't want to do that. I think there's still going to be some really good linebacker talent available when you get into the third round, but that is something that if they moved up to 7 for a tackle that they think is going to be really good, that is something I'd very much be on board with.
Very nice. Okay, so Eric, let's say all these trades don't happen. I think you hinted who you're predicting, but who do the Browns draft at 10? We haven't heard too much about Mekhi Becton. Is he sort of out of the Browns' plans right now? What are you predicting at the 10 spot?
Well, I guess I can't speak for them, but they're out of my Becton's out of my plan, so I'm willing that to be out of Andrew Berry's plans as well. As far as Becton's concerned, yeah, I mean, we had the flag of the test, but I don't really care about that. I just care that he was kind of a one-trick pony at the combine. Ran a great 40. Like I said, his tape is pretty good. I mean, he moves around pretty well, but he's in my opinion, he's hard to evaluate because he's not playing the same type of schedule that Jedrick Wills, Andrew Thomas, and even Tristan Wirfs. Granted, there's not a lot of great Big Ten teams, but there's a lot of good defensive players on defensive teams. Like
they have 3 of the 4 best pass rushers that Wirfs went up against.
Yeah, Gross Matos. I'm sure
AJ Epinesa from Iowa.
And I'm sure there's a couple Wisconsin that are usually good. So, so that being said, I'll just say no to him. I'm going to stick with Andrew Thomas. That's not who if I could pick myself, I would say Isaiah Simmons. But if I was going to Vegas, and it seems like, not literally to Vegas, but if I were to do that, it seems like a lot of people are going to be doing that. I would probably put my money on Andrew Thomas as the option for number 10 and the selection for number 10. So, he has a history at left tackle. He's been there for multiple years. Something that Wills or Wirfs can't say right now. Doesn't mean they can't develop, but that's a good starting point. And he played in arguably. And I will say, arguably, the one of the best conferences in the SEC. So, playing against good competition each year. So I'm going to stick with Andrew Thomas.
Drew, where are you going?
Yeah, I think that's probably the right answer. That's who I personally have mocked to the Browns. I have the Cardinals going with Wirfs at pick number 8. So that's probably. And I think I said this on one of the previous podcasts, that I gave that the highest odds. I fancy myself as a bit of an odds maker, and I gave that the highest odds because I think that that is, that I think that he will be there. In my mock, I have him as available then, so I have to sort of stand by that. I don't know that he will, certainly not, but that's the way that I think that they would go. I personally have Tristan Wirfs. I think he's a better player. I think he is a little quicker. I think that that he is a little more versatile, and I think that he is an absolutely perfect schematic fit for the wide zone. I understand that he doesn't have as many reps at left tackle, but he has played there. He played several hundred snaps at left tackle, so it's not totally uncharted territory for him. So that's the guy that I personally want at pick 10 is Tristan Wirfs. I would be very happy with Andrew Thomas. I would be happy with Isaiah Simmons. I think he gives them a bit of a playmaker on defense that they have lacked outside of Miles for ever. Is ever? Yeah, it's probably true.
Denzel Ward, but not last year.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of where my thoughts are. I am much higher on Mekhi Becton than Eric is, and I know he's much higher on Derek Brown than I am. So that's just a bit of a disagreement there. But I think Mekhi Becton's floor is the lowest of those four.
Oh boy!
But I think it is much higher than people are giving him credit for, and I think that. If I personally said that this guy blew away the spark testing, and it would not shock me at all if an analytics heavy front office said this guy's spark score is incredible, it's in the top 100 percentile. If Wirfs and Thomas are gone and that's your pick, I can certainly get on board with it. It helps that he played left tackle, and it helps that they have one of the premier coaches, offensive line coaches on the planet. In-house with Bill Callahan. I think that he can, with that type of a talent, assuming they get a full training camp, which is a big assumption with all that's going on in the world right now. But if they get a full training camp, if they get an off season, if he can get him something to work with, you might have a couple of lapses. You might have some issues early, but you're probably going to have that with any rookie, really. I think that the upside with Mekhi Becton being coached by Bill Callahan in a wide zone scheme is very intriguing. And so I can certainly see them going that route, and I would be just fine with it.
Yeah, I'm curious if this is the one instance with Mekhi Becton of Jimmy Haslam stepping in to say, do we really want to go down that path again? Even though, with the new CBA, there's relaxed drug rules within the NFL. So who knows? I don't think they want to go down that path again. I heard Andrew Berry have a interview with the media, and he didn't want to say that this was a negative, but he says he listens to all the data points. And that's certainly a data point. Doesn't want to tip his hand, but a lot of bad experiences for the Browns with dealing with that. So we'll see what they do. But there's going to be a lot of other really good storylines with this draft. Let alone what happens when everyone's virtual. But the quarterbacks are going to be a huge story. Hopefully, fingers crossed here, we don't draft a quarterback. Even though
draft a quarterback, I'm done, man.
I mean, maybe 6th, 7th round.
At 10 overall, that's it.
6th, 7th round, yeah. Not first round, though.
So you don't want to draft 2 at 10 if he's available?
No,
Okay.
I'm out.
Okay,
let's move on. I'll find a different team to root for.
So I think we're all rooting for quarterbacks early and often, but everyone looks at the quarterbacks in this draft, and I think that's one of the more interesting points. So Drew, with your infinite wisdom and odds making, how about you go first here? And who do you think of the quarterbacks are going to go in this first round, and what teams are they going to be going to?
Yeah, I have 3. I do not have Jordan Love coming off the board in the first round. I almost mocked him to the Saints at 24, but I think the Saints are really close, and I think that 24th pick might be enough to sort of push them over the edge. I ended up mocking Patrick Queen, the linebacker from LSU, who I'm actually hoping is available for the Browns. I don't think he will be at pick 41. But, the local guy, local product going to New Orleans, I couldn't resist. So that's I only have 3. That's the way I saw the Saints going. I didn't think the Patriots would go quarterback either. and you get into the bottom half of that, and it's all teams that are really pretty much set at quarterback beyond those two for the foreseeable future. There's some arguments you could make, but I think all those teams down there are sort of gearing up to try to win a championship this year. So I just have the three. Obviously, Joe Burrow is going to go number one overall. And this is not what I would do personally, but what I am hearing, and this could all be total BS, right? I don't know, but what I'm hearing is that the Dolphins prefer Justin Herbert from Oregon, and they pick fifth. And so in my mock, I have Justin Herbert going fifth to the Dolphins and Tua falling to the Chargers at 6. I think the Chargers would be thrilled to stay at pick 6 and get their quarterback. I don't know that that's a reality. That's not been the case in any of the previous drafts. If you really like a quarterback, you move up those 2, 3, 4 spots, whatever it takes, and you go get your guy. But it's really hard to mock trades and stuff like that. So that's the way that I see it going. I really like the idea of Justin Herbert to the Dolphins in my mock. Again, it's not who I would take. I think Tua is a far better quarterback. I think he's a more accurate passer. I think he throws with a little more timing. I think he's a better athlete. That's who I would go with over Herbert. But I think there will be 3 quarterbacks selected in the top 9 picks, which is good news for us, obviously.
Eric, where do these quarterbacks go? And do you have Love in the first round or anyone else?
Yeah, I got a big upset. I'm going out on a limb, but you know what? Tim Tebow was taken pretty early, so stranger things have happened. So I got 5, which is probably, 4 is probably a good number. I'm guessing the over-under is 3.5, maybe 4. I don't know, so I'm going way over that. I'm sticking with Burrow at number 1. I don't know if that's official. I've read reports that it's all but done. I'm going to say the Tua Tagovailoa story that the Dolphins don't want him to smoke. I'm the same as you, just flip-flopped. Tua at 5, Justin at 6. He's good West Coast, L.A., from, played at college at Oregon. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers would trade up. The only way I could see Chargers getting Tua is if they would trade up with the Giants to, supplant Dolphins, but I'm just going to, assume that there's no trades in this scenario. Now, these two are, like I said, going on a limb, so I'll probably look foolish tomorrow.
Dude, everybody looks foolish in the mock draft, man. Just throw me what you got.
I did have Jordan Love, but I had him to 29th for the Titans to be the backup for Tannehill. Learn the system 1 year or 2 years or however long Tannehill decides to play good this year or adequate, and then Love take the reins. And my biggest one, going way out on a limb, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts by the New Orleans Saints at 24 to be Drew Brees' successor, knowing that he's not going to play for a year or two, playing from the South. And then, I guess he did transfer to Oklahoma. So it's stayed, he was at Alabama. But so I'm going with 5. Obviously.
Hurts over Love, though. Wow. Yeah, okay.
That would be the upset. The first 3 would be day 1 starters, likely. And then the last 2 would be signed as a first-round pick, but knowing that they will wait at least half a year in Tannehill's case, if not up to 2 seasons. So that's what I'm sticking with.
All right, I'll throw in my 2 cents here. Yeah, Burrow to the Bengals. Yeah, I like your idea of Tua going to the Dolphins, and that's all smoke. Just because Tua's going to be, minus all the injuries, he's going to be an elite NFL quarterback. We'll see what happens with the injuries, but hopefully he's healthy and he could be the quarterback of the future for the Dolphins. And then, Raiders have a couple picks. I could see the Raiders getting Herbert with one of those picks. And I think I'll just be happy as long as the Patriots do not end up with Tua. I think that'd be my worst case scenario if that does happen. But I'm only going to go with 3 quarterbacks in the first round. I don't think anyone else. Maybe Jordan Love mid-second. But yeah, he's really cooled off as of late. We'll see where he goes. But yeah, it should be an interesting draft. It's going to be fun to watch. There's going to be a whole lot of different in this draft. everyone coming from their different locations. I've seen some NFL executives, they have their whole setup of multiple screens, and they have multiple screens at every single person's house. And there's virtual draft parties. The Browns have the virtual draft party. So it's going to be pretty fun. So just want to know what you guys are going to be up to. Drew, what are your plans for this draft, or any stories to share from previous draft parties that you'll be missing out on?
Oh, sure.
Draft?
So, my friends from this local area, from my college, we've done a draft get together of some sort for most of the last 10 to 12 years, really. I can remember back when the Eagles drafted Deshaun Jackson in 2008. Everybody was going nuts, and the Browns didn't have a pick, so I was sort of bandwagoning it there for a little bit. So that's really when it started for me, hanging out with all my friends from college. Another sort of fun day was 2007, the year before that. A lot of my friends were still in college. Went back for it. And that was the year the Browns picked Joe Thomas, and I must come clean. I wanted Brady Quinn in that draft at 3 overall, which would have been terrible. And then he starts falling, and then I'm just getting wet. I'm getting drunk. I'm getting wasted. We didn't pick the quarterback that they should have gotten. And then they make this trade, and one of my buddies, Steve, he's a fan of the podcast, fellow believer. Hey, Steve out there, he comes up and he grabs me, and he's like, "You have to come inside now." And he's this big dude. He just picks me up and bowls me inside, and we're watching, and then they made the trade and picked him, and I started going crazy. Everybody thought that something was wrong with me, so I'll throw that one out there, and I'll throw. I don't want to steal Eric's thunder here, but I will also come clean on the Braylon Edwards draft when I was at Ryan's house, and our good friend, one of my best memories with Mickey is hanging out with him at this draft, and I'm leading a Braylon Edwards chant again at third overall or fourth overall, and they end up taking him, and I go crazy again. So early on, I was not great at this, although I had some very strong opinions in terms of the draft. But those are some memories that I really look back on fondly. This year, obviously, we're not getting together with anybody, but I am hosting a Zoom draft party. So anybody listening out there, if you want to get down on the virtual draft party with me and some of the boys, let me know. Shoot me a text, email, GChat, whatever, and we'll get you invited. So that's what we're doing. Looking forward to it. Right now, there's 10 or 12 of us that are going to pop into this thing. So we'll do a little fun virtual hangout and watch the draft all at the same time in different locations. So it'll be interesting, and hopefully we don't have to do it again anytime soon.
Very nice. Eric, what are your plans?
All right. Well, I just acquired some frozen wings and fries. So instead of going to Winking Lizard, which is closed, I'm making my wings and fries and adult beverages over here to be watched over here. So, I leave my options open for the Zoom call. So, I'm sure I'll make my proper arrangements. But, I'm used to either hanging out with some friends or just texting some other friends. So it'd be nice to do some Zoom. But I'm sure my phone will be blowing up one way or another. I don't know. It'll be a game time decision, but I'm sure I'll enjoy myself. As far as past goes, I feel like my formative years were college or post-college is first the Ohio State spring game. This is back when, because we're so old, the first day used to be on Saturday for some of you youngsters, and the Ohio State spring game I'm guessing it probably started at 1 o'clock, and the Browns had the 6th selection, let's just say, and started at noon. So obviously it was during the game, it had already started, and I got a text that said, Browns trade up 1 spot. And I said, that's fine, as long as they don't take Kellen Winslow. Anybody else I'm fine with. Kellen Winslow they took. I go, are you? I should have known. So I wasn't too happy about that, but that was very memorable. Couldn't even tell you what happened in the spring game, but that did not make my day. Or
Matt Millen got him for a second-round pick to go up 1 spot. It was a brutal trade.
And yeah, I mean the next 2 years, obviously we touched base on the fun time we had at Ryan and Mickey's Lazy Man Beer Pong in 2005.
Lazy Man beer pong. Oh man, I forgot all about that.
I assume that I somehow had to do something with this, but we did put a second TV, watch the spring game on one TV and the draft on the bigger TV. So we had the new picture-in-picture, both nice tube TVs that were very heavy. Yes, the Braylon Edwards. I unfortunately remember that. I do remember me and Drew talking, I think, that we were kind of excited with the prospect of Charlie Fry that year in the third round. So we're like, yeah, maybe he's the guy. That didn't turn out so well. 2006, also at Miami. I remember a big touch football game with a bunch of people that started off the day. That was very exciting. More beer pong. This is the standard format, the standing this year. Not a fan of Cam Windley when we took him. Not a fan of that. We traded one spot with the Ravens. I did like DeQuell Jackson in the second round, who had a pretty solid career. So that's about all you could say for any of the picks. Other than that, recently there's been a lot of head scratchers and bad stuff. I was at Ryan a couple times with the Brandon Whedon, the Johnny Manziel, just bad picks. And, hopefully that doesn't happen tomorrow through Saturday. And I guess if I could share one more, both of my kids were born around this time of year. My son was born the day after 2016, so I actually watched the draft from the delivery room the day after my wife delivered. So
nice. Okay.
That was a Corey Coleman draft, so that was very forgettable.
You had a reason to forget it, man.
Right.
Some of the other of us weren't so lucky.
Yeah.
I remember that vividly.
So I had to be quiet to show my displeasure when they took him after trading down twice. And then my daughter was born the day after the 2018 ended, the Baker Mayfield. So that was a Sunday. Saturday was the last day.
Oh, so what a glorious day. You got to have a daughter after that, man.
So I'm hoping,
what a day.
Kayla brought the Cavs championship. I was hoping she could she brought Baker Mayfield. Now we need that Super Bowl. But yeah, it's unfortunately we haven't had a lot to cheer about as Browns fans, so this is usually our crescendo of the season. So, I'm looking forward to it this year, and let's make some smart decisions, Andrew Barry, and make this team a lot better, and I don't know, can't wait.
Yeah, I think I've been expressing how much goodwill I've been building up. Oh, I didn't watch the Masters. Oh, I haven't been watching any NBA, or I haven't been watching any sports as of late. Yeah. So I'm hoping that I've got the green light for all NFL draft coverage tomorrow night. Kid-free will be the main factor for tomorrow night. So looking forward to that. Jump on a Zoom call or at least text you guys. I'm sure we'll be texting, so that'll be fun. The 2006 draft was awesome down in Miami, and that was on a Saturday. I still really love the Saturday drafts. Love getting up in the morning, starting drinking.
We got started early back then.
And man, those Saturday drafts were so much fun. I still miss the Saturday drafts. I don't think the Thursday can compete. The one part of that did compete, they did have the NFL draft out in Chicago, and I would love for Canton or Cleveland to have this as well, of beautiful spring day, and they had a NFL draft flag football tournament that we took part in. We got absolutely slaughtered in. But it was like it was the most beautiful day of the year. And I think for all of our sakes, I hope Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we can have some good days coming up here weather-wise. So maybe we can pull that big TV outside, watch a little bit of the draft outside, enjoy some good weather. We'll see if that occurs. But that's what I'm looking forward to.
They had the 2017 draft in Philly, and I got to go to that. That was the Myles Garrett one. I'd be remiss not to mention that as a favorite draft memory. Getting there to watch them get number 1 overall and not pick Mitchell Trubisky, which there was some rumors they were going to do. So
could have been worse.
Our favorite time of the year.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. We'll be texting and tweeting and watching.
Ryan, can you tell them about the little preview on Friday? We're gonna
and
right?
Don't forget.
yeah, as long as things go well here, we will be following up. So on Friday, we will release an after draft review. We'll see who is left over in the draft, give you a quick preview before the second round starts. So we'll be working on that early on Friday. So be aware of that. We'll be sending out through YouTube and through all the podcast channels as well. But yeah, look out for that. We're so excited to talk more draft, and we'll get on that for the second round. So Drew, Eric, thank you guys. Looking forward to tomorrow, and go Browns.
Go Browns. Go Andrew. Go Paul. Come on, get it right, guys.